Welcome back to Grim and Whim. Today I'll be reading stories from the subreddit r/ghoststories. Let's go ahead and hop into our first story. The first story is titled, Seeing Ghosts of People Who Were Autopsied. And I'm going to put a trigger warning for this first story because it does mention a word that rhymes with grape. So if you aren't in the headspace to hear about that today, please be kind to your mind and skip ahead to the next story. I was posted in a primary healthcare center with a fellow senior doctor. It was our night shift, and he started to tell me stories of the time when he was doing autopsies in the same hospital. He was shifted to PHC later because he couldn't deal with the trauma. He said that not all autopsies lead to a haunting, but it was people who had killed themselves or cases of rape/assault where the cause of death was unnatural. It was these cases that led to some of the most disturbing paranormal activities. One such case he narrated that night was of a woman who was in her mid-20s, who was first raped, then strangulated, and later her body was thrown in a well by her in-laws. Such incidents are common in rural areas of India. They hoped to escape the charges, but after thorough examination of her lungs by my colleague, the senior doctor, who did her autopsy, it was obvious that she was killed first and drowned later. The in-laws of this woman tried to pay a hefty amount to him so as to escape the charges, but he refused. After that incident, he said that he often saw the woman, wet hair, bulging eyes, and a naked white pale body, often sitting by his bedside just looking at him. He said it wasn't sleep paralysis. He was shattered one time as he was combing his hair in the mirror, and he saw that same woman just peeking at him through the door. Only her eyes and her wet hair were visible through the mirror. It became so traumatic that he left that part of his profession completely, even though he was getting paid a lot for that job. He said he doesn't ever wish to go back. And the fact that it was the same hospital where I'm working in right now, kind of creepy, not gonna lie. The next story is titled, Sophie. Like most kids, I had an imaginary friend growing up. In fact, I had several, but the first one I can kind of remember was a little girl called Sophie. She was a normal girl roughly my age, between 4 and 6, and she wore a dress and socks. However, Sophie had a very strange feature, an odd crick in her neck. My first house where I lived was an old one, I'd say roughly 80 years old, and I've grown up calling my next-door neighbor Grandma, who had been in her place for the last 60 years. This is important later. Sophie was my best friend when I was little, which isn't out of the ordinary for kids. I talked to her a lot and we would play in my room, but she would never go downstairs. She told me she was scared of them. It became routine for me to walk down the stairs, turn around, and call up, "Hey, see, it's okay. You can come down." But she wouldn't, and I could never understand why. The older I got, the less I saw Sophie, and eventually I did forget about her. That was until Mom and I visited Grandma after moving to a new house, and we were reminiscing about my childhood there. That's when Mom brought up what had become my staircase routine when I was little, which led Grandma to question, "Who were you talking to?" I replied, "Oh, Sophie," and I proceeded to describe her. Grandma went quiet. When I first moved into this house, my neighbors were in the process of moving out. They had a daughter who had tripped and fallen down the stairs about a month prior, and sadly, she didn't survive the fall. She broke her neck. The next story is titled The Child. It's about 8 p.m. on a Friday night, and my 5-year-old twins are up watching a movie while I'm doing laundry. I hear one say to turn the light off while they are watching their movie, cuddled in their blankets. My other twin starts freaking out and turns the light on, saying that there's a weird-looking boy in the living room, and she can see him every time the TV light flashes. I tell her it's okay and nobody is in the house. They turn the lights back off, and within seconds, she starts crying and pointing, covering her face with her blanket. I turn the light on and see nothing. I tell them, enough TV for the night, and it's time to go get to bed. I tuck them in, close the door, turn the TV off and the light out. My dog comes with me back to the laundry room, and I begin to fold laundry. About 30 minutes go by and I am finished. I come into my house, turn the lights off, and I come to the living room doorway. All the lights are out, and a child-sized black shadow stands in the middle of the doorway. I think to myself, it's one of my kids, and I say, "Go to bed," but it doesn't move. I get this odd sense of fear, like it crept into me. I look down to see where my dog is, and he's staring at it too, right by my side. I look up, and it's gone. I went straight to my kids' room, and they were both asleep, tucked in as I left them. Maybe there was a little boy like she had said. Maybe she could see something, and I didn't at that moment, but I sure saw it then. Goosebumps. Some more recent things are my daughter waking up saying there's a group of people in her closet trying to talk to her, and that a lady touches her hair at night. I have seen a dark mass float through my bedroom, and one night I heard what sounded like a radio playing. I followed it to my kids' room, and when I opened the door, it went silent. The weirdest part is that it seemed to come from their sound machine, which only has set sounds. And this sounded like two people talking or singing. It was very weird. The final story is titled, Out of the Mouth of Babes. My daughter and her family live in an L-shaped apartment building, 3 units on the north side and 3 on the west. My daughter lives in number 6, which is right by the road, so they only know the person in number 5. My daughter called me one day to tell me that her 3-year-old daughter has been telling her the following conversation. My granddaughter said, "That man is sad." My daughter asked, "What man?" My granddaughter replied, "The man that died." "Why is he sad?" my daughter asked. And my granddaughter said, "Because no one knows he's dead." She talked like this for 2 days. On the 3rd day, my daughter called me, obviously upset. She noticed a lot of policemen outside the apartment building. She asked, "What's going on?" And one of them told her that the man that lived in number 3 was dead and had been dead for 4 to 5 days. It turns out the man had no family and was found only because of the smell coming from his apartment. This was last year, in the middle of August. Thank you so much for joining me. It's goodbye for now, but I hope to haunt you again soon.